Hi, this is Mike Brennan here at the National Hurricane Center. It's just around 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, November 6th, coming on with the latest on dangerous Hurricane Rafael, about to make landfall here in the next 30 minutes or so along the south coast of Cuba. You can see the center of circulation here approaching the south coast of Cuba, currently situated about 45 miles to the south-southwest of Havana, moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. And in the radar imagery from Key West this afternoon, you can see that portions of the eye wall have already moved on shore. We're going to see the center of Rafael cross the coast here in the next 30 minutes or so. Very strong winds moving on shore, gusts above tropical storm force in Havana in the last hour, and that life-threatening storm surge of 9 to 14 feet above normal tide levels is going to be occurring now in the next hour or so as the center of Rafael moves on shore. Also seeing very heavy rainfall here in the radar imagery, expecting widespread rainfall totals of 4 to 8 inches, isolated amounts as high as 12 inches across portions of western Cuba, which could cause life-threatening flash floods and landslides in some of those areas. Now again, you can also see some of the outer rain bands moving up into the Florida Straits, into portions of the lower Florida Keys, where we have a tropical storm warning in effect in the middle and lower Keys. Especially, you could see tropical storm conditions and gusts, especially from Key West over to the dry Tortugas, in addition to 1 to 3 inches of rain in some of those areas. Moving back down to Cuba, we have a hurricane warning in effect for much of western Cuba this afternoon, and we are expecting the center of Rafael to move quickly across western Cuba and out into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico this evening and overnight, and then make a pretty sharp westward turn and move generally westward across the southeastern Gulf of Mexico as we go through the day from Thursday night, Friday. And if you remember yesterday, in the last couple days, there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether Rafael would turn northward towards the northern Gulf Coast or bend more westward out over the central Gulf Coast out through the next several days into early next week. Now appears more likely we're going to see that western scenario play out with a slow motion of a weakening of Rafael as it moves westward across the Gulf, weakening from a hurricane down to a tropical storm, perhaps pretty quickly weakening as we go from Sunday into Monday. So while the threat for direct impacts along the northern Gulf Coast has decreased, we do want everybody in the northern, western, southern, southwestern Gulf to just keep an eye on Rafael through the next several days as we're able to refine the forecast and figure out if Rafael is going to end up dissipating out over the Gulf or if it will stick around into portions of next week. Back to the rainfall. Again, I talked about the heavy rainfall occurring in Cuba. Again, isolated amounts as high as 12 inches. Could see additional couple of inches of rain in portions of the Cayman Islands as well, exacerbating some of the impacts there. So let's wrap up with the key messages for Rafael on this Wednesday afternoon. Again, major hurricane making landfall here in the next half hour or so. Hurricane warning in effect for much of western Cuba. Life-threatening, damaging hurricane force winds, especially in the eye wall. That storm surge of 9 to 14 feet above normal tide levels moving onshore along the south coast of Cuba, near and to the right of where the center is making landfall, and that life-threatening flash flooding occurring with up to 12 inches of rain. Tropical storm force winds, especially in gusts, are expected in portions of the lower and middle Florida Keys, beginning later today and continuing through tonight, with some potential for rainfall and even isolated tornadoes in the Keys as we go through the overnight hours. Expecting again heavy rainfall to the Cayman Islands and western Cuba. And finally, looking out longer term into the weekend and early next week, Rafael is forecast to meander over the south central Gulf of Mexico, and interest in the southern and southwestern Gulf in particular should monitor the progress of Rafael through the next several days. So we'll be back with more on Rafael throughout the next several days. You can always come back here to the National Hurricane Center at Hurricanes.gov for the latest. In the Caribbean, you can get more information from your local meteorological service, and in the United States, you can get more information from your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center.